We are now moving to question time. Senator Colbeck.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Climate Change and Energy, Senator Ayres. The government says that it has detailed information showing Australia has strong fuel supplies, but participants in Australia's fishing industry tell us the only diesel they have is what's left in their boats when they got back from sea. Minister, if supplies are so strong, where is the diesel for these fishing boats?
Minister Ayres.
Not in Texas.
Thank you. Well,
Order. Order.
if it was asked seriously, there wouldn't be the level of interjections. There wouldn't be the level of interjections that there always are on this subject. And let me just state very, very plainly what the position is in terms of national fuel supplies, and then I will come to the example that Senator Colbeck has raised, which reflects the experience of not just the example that he raised, but some parts of regional Australia. But at the national level, there is, in terms of petrol supplies, 1.56 billion litres of petrol on hand here in Australia, 80% of it on land, around about 20% of it on the water between refineries and ports within our exclusive economic zone. 32 days' worth of diesel, 2.97 billion litres. Now, those numbers have not fundamentally changed since the conflict in the Middle East began. And that does reflect what it was that the petroleum sector and others have been communicating directly with the Minister about since the Middle East conflict began, that ship arrivals have happened exactly as expected, and watching very closely the movements of ships towards Australia, and they are happening in an orderly, predictable kind of way. Now, that does not mean that there hasn't been some unusual purchasing behaviour, where in some areas reported to us, and I think I'll have to come to it in the supplementary question, Senator Colbeck, which I'm sure will follow the same line of argument.
Thank you, Minister Ayres. Senator Colbeck, first supplementary.
Thank you, President, and I would prefer if you just answer the question. Has the government identified any evidence of hoarding, bottlenecks or supply being held by major suppliers to particular supply chains? And if not, why has it failed to work out why fuel is not reaching the Australians who need it?
Thank you, Senator Colbeck. Minister Ayres.
Well, as I was indicating, there has been a spike in purchases. The President of the National Farmers Federation said there's been an increase in demand around about 40% right across the nation. Everyone across the economy, that's his words, everyone across the economy is forward buying more than they usually do. Peter Jones, the CEO of the Victorian Automotive Chamber of Commerce, said, "What I would say is that there is plenty of fuel in the country. The issue is demand."
Senator Colbeck.
A point of order on direct relevance, President. My question goes to this particular cohort who are wanting to understand where the fuel that the government says in the country actually is. The simple question is, where is it and why isn't it making through the supply chain?
The Minister is being directly relevant. You asked the Minister about bottlenecks and hoarding and supply chain, so I think he's being directly relevant to your question. Minister Ayres.
I'm talking precisely, Senator Colbeck, in evidentiary terms of what it is that industry, people who are really engaged in driving trucks, in the fishing industry and supplying petroleum are saying. Spikes in demand have created some constraints in some regional parts of Australia. Overall, in fuel security terms, we are stronger than we have been for 15 years.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Colbeck, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. And given that the fishing industry weren't even invited to the round table, I'm not sure how he understands what the fishing industry thinks. Minister, if the fuel stocks are as strong as the government claims, what has the government told suppliers to do to get that fuel to fishing boats, service stations, farmers and regional communities immediately?
Thank you, Senator Colbeck. Minister Ayres.
Well, one of the things that we had a good discussion about was Minister Bowen undertaking to make sure that the kind of information that I have relayed to you, which is released on a quarterly basis by the Australian government, but we have been relaying to you on a daily basis, will be released in a public way every week so that industry can see in a completely transparent way what is going on in supply terms. And that ought to be useful in terms of how purchasing behaviour is shaped over the coming weeks and months. I hope this crisis ends tomorrow. It may continue for some weeks or months, and we are going to have to manage these issues in a careful way. Industry is undertaken to make sure they are communicating effectively with the community, and we will work together as Australians, farmers, fertiliser, fishing, fuel, everybody together to get the right national outcome.
Senator Cox.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Minister Wong. The conflict in the Middle East continues with ongoing disruptions for travel for more than 100,000 Australians in the region. Can you tell us what the Albanese Labor government is doing to support Australians impacted by the conflict?
Thank you, Senator Cox. Minister Wong.
Thank you. I thank Senator Cox for that question. And before I turn to it, if I could take the indulgence of welcoming 4 Pacific Fellows who are sitting in the press gallery, who have been supported to visit Australia by the Australian Government through the Australia Awards program from Fiji, PNG and Vanuatu. Welcome to the Senate. In relation to your question, Senator Cox, I can inform the Senate that Iran's reprisal attacks continue at scale and depth that we have not seen before. At least 9 cities in which we have Australian embassies and consulates have experienced missile and drone attacks. Our missions in Abu Dhabi, Dubai and Tel Aviv have all had to physically close in the last week. We urge Australians to follow advice on Smart Traveller, including where we recommend not attending these missions or surrounding areas. The government's number one priority, is to keep Australians safe at home and abroad. The dangerous and destabilising attacks by Iran put civilian lives at risk, including Australian lives, and we continue to support Australians affected as limited commercial flights resume and we expand consular efforts. As of today, more than 3,200 Australians have returned on 23 commercial flights. Further scheduled services are in coming days. Commercial flights remain the fastest option for Australians to leave the Middle East. Major airlines have extended their refund and rebooking windows to assist passengers whose flights have been impacted. We encourage all Australians to leave the region if possible. Please take a seat on a commercial flight if one is available. It may be the last chance for some time. This conflict is likely to intensify and continue in the near term. Our message to Australians is do not wait until it is too late. Leave now while commercial flights are available.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Cox, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. In recent days, we've also seen an escalation of conflict in Lebanon. Minister, what is the Albanese Labor government's response and what is the advice for Australians in Lebanon?
Minister Wong.
As I have said, Australia is deeply concerned by the expansion of the conflict into Lebanon, the loss of life and the displacement of more than 750,000 civilians. This is exacerbating the humanitarian situation in Lebanon. Australia condemns Hezbollah's strikes on Israel and we support Lebanon's efforts to disarm Hezbollah in line with previous agreements. I have been clear for some days that we do not wish to see Israel conduct a major ground offensive into Lebanon. We also welcome the emergency debate in the Security Council taking place later today. We call on all parties to adhere to international humanitarian law and the protection of civilians. To the some 15,000 Australians in Lebanon, we urge you to leave now if it is safe to do so, repeating my message, earlier messages. If you can secure a commercial flight and travel to the airport safely, please do so before it is too late.
Senator Cox, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. The conflict in the Middle East is also causing economic disruption around the world. Can you please provide an update to the Chamber Minister on the Albanese Labor government's work to safeguard Australia's fuel supply?
Minister Wong.
Thank you, President. As we understand, Australians are concerned about access to fuel, and we are not immune to the effect of oil prices on the global economy. As Minister Ayres said, petrol companies are telling us that fuel stock continues to arrive as expected and on time. But there has been a large change in the pattern of demand, and that is having an effect on the supply, particularly in regional communities. We've seen jerry cans coming off the shelves at Bunnings and lines at the pump. The government has been clear that retailers should not use this period as an opportunity for price gouging. The National Farmers Federation, Fertiliser Australia, the petroleum industry and the Peak Group of service stations told Minister Bowen yesterday that we needed to encourage Australians not to panic buy. Yet what we see from the coalition, from Senators Cash and Canavan this morning, again from Senator Colbeck, is really nothing short of irresponsible. Winding up the way, winding up people and stoking fear. It demonstrates, you won't listen to the NFF. Where are the responsible adults on that side?
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. I'm waiting for order. I'm waiting for order. Senator Watt. Order. Order. Senator Watt. Order. Senator Canavan, first of all, congratulations on your election, and go to your question.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you for those congratulations. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Climate Change and Energy, Senator Ayres. Minister, Ripple Creek Transport, a Townsville-based business, has reported being hit with a 60% increase in fuel prices. Many truckies cannot pass on these costs, and they then have to suffer with the higher costs of doing business. What practical action has the government taken to help Ripple Creek Transport from fuel price gouging?
Thank you, Senator Canavan. Minister Ayres.
Well, thank you, Senator Canavan, and congratulations as well for your for this morning's elevation. I can tell you that alongside the measures that have been undertaken by this government in the long term, that is engaging the fuel security measures that you and I have discussed over the last few days, we announced just a little while ago that the government will double penalties for false or misleading conduct and cartel behaviour to a maximum of $100 million per offence for that kind of conduct across the economy. We tasked the ACCC to ramp up fuel monitoring, reporting weekly with a focus on unusual price spikes. As consumers will see, petrol stations have moved very fast to adjust for increases in prices for international crude oil. We want to make sure that those price rises are consistent with their obligations, but also want to see price falls that occur when and if international crude prices fall. We're working with industry to increase fuel supply to service stations, including by helping the fuel sector secure ACCC authorisation to coordinate supply and to unlock bottlenecks. So removing that constraint in relation to that kind of activity. Those measures are in addition to the substantial action that we've already taken on fuel prices. Well, it's a better question, Senator McKenzie. It's a better question, and I have been talking to industry and to. He'll get another go.
Order. Senator Canavan, are you rising on a point of order?
No, I thought.
Oh, OK. Sorry. I looked and I thought he still had time left. My mistake. Senator Canavan, first supplementary.
Look, thanks, Madam President. Minister, Fly Pelican Airlines has been advised by their fuel supplier that their fuel costs will be going up 70 cents a litre, effective immediately. Such an increase, if able to be passed on, would force airline ticket costs up by $30 to $40 a passenger. Again, what practical action has the government taken over the past week to protect regional airline passengers from price spikes due to fuel gouging?
Thank you, Senator Canavan. Minister Ayres.
Well, it's certainly the case that airline ticket prices in some circumstances are significantly elevated. This is an unlooked-for international crisis that nobody wants to see what is happening in the Middle East and its impact on fuel supplies. The measures that Australia has taken, led by the Albanese government, to impose the minimum stockholding obligations, mean that today we are more fuel secure, not complacent, but more fuel secure than we have been for 15 years. The measures that I just outlined to you, taken today, on top of the other measures being taken by the government.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Canavan, second supplementary.
Thank you, Madam President. Minister, given the issues facing our trucking industry, our aviation industry, how many businesses is the ACCC currently investigating for fuel price gouging? And has the government joined with other countries overnight to ask the International Energy Agency to release an emergency oil release from global stockpiles?
Thank you, Senator Canavan. Minister Ayres.
It is good, Senator Canavan, to see your question indicate that now the National Party understands the difference between our IEA obligations and our minimum stockholding obligations. That is a good thing, because it might improve the kind of information that is being conveyed by members of the National Party, and in particular Queensland Liberal National Party MPs, to the Australian public.
Minister Ayres. Senator Canavan.
Just on relevance, there's just 30 seconds left. It's a very detailed question. I think people would love to just have an answer. The Minister can engage in commentary in other places, but this is to answer questions.
I will draw the... Senator McKenzie, I'm not listening to you interject. Senator McKenzie, I'm speaking. You are being incredibly disrespectful. I'm not listening to you interject for the remainder of question time. It can be helped. I will take your interjection. You can either sit here silently or you can leave the chamber. I don't want to be forced into a position where I have to name you, but that is where it's heading. Every single day you interject for nearly the whole time. Minister Ayres, I do need you to direct your answers to the question.
I don't think it's possible for me to answer your question in relation to the number of ACCC investigations that are occurring, but if I can come back to you, I will. On the IEA question, that is not something that I believe that I can report to the Senate at this stage, but more information will be provided. It is good to see you as the leader of the National Party. It is good to see Senator McKenzie as leader of the National Party here, and Senator McDonald as the deputy leader of the National Party. I just wonder what it is. Like the painters and dockers couldn't create a job creation scheme as elaborate as that. What did Senator Cadell do to miss out?
Senator Waters. Order. I have Senator Waters on her feet. Senator Waters.
Thanks, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Minister Wong. Is Australia at war?
Thank you, Senator Waters.
What I have made clear publicly when I've been asked that is that we are engaged in collective self-defence. And the reason we are doing that is that we know that the Gulf countries have been the subject of attacks from Iran, countries that have not participated in strikes against Iran, but have themselves been attacked with a barrage of missiles and drones, including civilian targets, civilian infrastructure, and areas where Australians are present. And from the government's perspective, our obligation, our first priority, is to do all we can to keep people safe. That is why we have announced the deployment that we announced yesterday. The purpose of that deployment is to help the UAE and other Gulf nations defend themselves, and in doing so also help the Australians who are resident.
Please resume your seat. Senator Waters.
A point of order on relevance. Are we at war?
The minister is being relevant to your question, Senator Waters. Minister Wong. Order. Order.
And I responded by being clear that we are engaged in collective self-defence with the Gulf nations, and I explained why. That is in our national interests and why civilians are at risk, that we are working to protect civilians. I do find it passing strange that the Greens political party, and you're entitled to be pacifists, but you do not seem to be concerned about civilian lives in Gulf states, including Australia. We are not taking offensive action against
Wong. Senator Hanson-Young.
On a point of relevance, the question was very direct, and we asked the minister to answer it.
Senator Hanson-Young, Senator Waters stood on a point of order on exactly the same matter. The minister is being relevant, and I will again answer your point of order in the same way, and the minister is being relevant. Senator Ayres.
Can I just on that point of order? The question purports to be a serious question.
Senator Ayres, I've ruled on the question.
Well,
please resume your seat. Order. Order. Minister Wong, did you wish to continue?
Thank you. What the government has made clear is we are not taking offensive action against Iran, and we are not deploying Australian troops on the ground in Iran. We are taking defensive actions to support our partners' efforts to keep Australians safe.
The time for answering has expired. Senator Waters, first supplementary.
Last night on 7:30, the Minister for Defence confirmed that the US had requested that Australia deploy missiles, aircraft and personnel. How and when was that US request made? And why are we bowing to Donald Trump's demands?
Thank you, Senator Waters. Minister Wong.
This is about the safety of Australians. This is about the safety of Australians.
Order.
I will come to that, Senator, but you also made a political assertion at the end of your question, and I need to rebut that, because this is about the safety of Australians. Now we know, as Ms. Dr. Thafer from the Gulf International Forum said on Radio National today, the UAE has faced more missile and drone attacks than Israel. We have people in the UAE, so it is our obligation to help them. I will come to that. I'm responding to the second part. I will come to that. If you stop interjecting, I might get to that. That's fine. No worries.
Senator Waters, second supplementary.
I note that was not answered at all. You're claiming that you're deploying troops to assist Australians, but you've taken no action for the thousands of Australians being attacked by Israeli bombs in Lebanon. Why the double standards? Are you waiting for Trump to tell you what to do here as well?
Senator Waters, before I call the minister, I do want to hear her answers, and I have asked on several occasions for all of you to come to order. That is what I expect. Minister Wong. Senator Shoebridge, you're not in a debate with me. Come to order. Come to order. Minister Wong.
We act in Australia's national interest. That is what our government does. That is what our government does. And you have heard me each day outline the rationale for decisions that the government has taken. We act in Australia's interests. We responded to a request. I made clear that there had been a number of requests. We also have made clear the request to which the government is responding is a written request from the United Arab Emirates, who are under attack, not because they have taken action against Iran, but because Iran is seeking to increase the cost of conflict. attacking civilians. And, Senator, you may not consider that a problem. We do. We think attacks on civilians in the Middle East who are not part of combatant nations and attacks in locations where there are many Australians. Well, you had an opportunity today to have a debate. Do you want me to answer the question, Senator Auburn-Payne?
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Walker. Order. Order. Senator Shoebridge. Order. Senator Walker.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister for Women, Senator Gallagher. On Sunday, we marked International Women's Day, a time to reflect on progress, celebrate achievements and to recommit to advancing gender equality. This year, UN Women Australia's theme was Balance the Scales. It highlights the ongoing need to address inequality and improve outcomes for women and girls. Can the Minister outline how the Albanese Labor government is working to help balance the scales on gender equality and what progress has been made to date?
Thank you, Senator Walker. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President. I thank Senator Walker for the question and just want to remark how proud we are to have her as a member of our Senate team, a younger woman who's joined a majority women federal government, and we're so pleased to have her, along with all of my colleagues on this side, who, regardless of their gender, see the point of having gender equality at the centre of our economic and social policy thinking. And we have done this since being elected to government, where we recognise that gender equality is good for everybody. It's good for the community, it's good for business, it's good for government. And that's why we have, since coming to government, dealt with structural barriers or barriers that are, in effect, perpetuate gender equality and deal with some of those big, significant areas of inequality, like in areas of violence against women and children, where we have put significant investments, but also, importantly, the policy work to underpin and guide those investments. Areas like extending paid parental leave, which will reach 26 weeks by 2026, and paying super on that PPL, recognising that women, when they are as a primary carer coming in and out of the paid workforce, are often taking an economic hit by pursuing their unpaid caring role, making childcare cheaper and guaranteeing at least 3 days of subsidised care a week so women can and their families can have the choices they need about how much they work and when they work. Increasing wages in historically underpaid feminised industries such as aged care and childcare is already making a difference, with more men seeking employment in areas like aged care. Our women's health package, which for the first time is investing hundreds of millions of dollars to make sure women get access not only to the treatment but to the time they need to deal with some of those health issues that are specific to women.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Walker, first supplementary.
On Friday, the annual Status of Women report card was released to coincide with International Women's Day. What were the key findings of the report card, and why are updates like this such an important tool in tracking progress and driving action on gender equality?
Thank you, Senator Walker. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, and I thank Senator Walker for that question because it is an important one. We do release the report card every year, and in the release of this year it shows that we've reached our highest score ever for our global ranking on gender equality, moving from 43rd when we came to government to 13th now. It also showed that there was areas like care where dads are spending more time with their children and taking up more of those caring leave arrangements, which is fantastic, including with the government scheme. It shows that the gender pay gap is continuing to narrow, currently sitting at 11.5%, and indeed it aligns with WGEA's employer gender pay gap data, which I know Senator Canavan says was the most useless set of data that a government agency has ever collected. We don't agree with that. We think it is important data and it is driving down, and it has shown year on year that it has driven down the gender pay gap, but there is obviously areas where we still need to improve.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Walker, second supplementary.
International Women's Day is a celebration of progress and an important opportunity to look ahead and recommit to taking further action for gender equality. Can the minister outline why women's voices and representation in decision-making are so important to protecting hard-won gains and driving further progress?
Thank you, Senator Walker. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, and I thank Senator Walker for that question. In fact, it was 43 years ago today, in 1983, that Susan Ryan was appointed the first woman to serve in a Labor cabinet. 43 years ago, long before you were born, Senator Walker, but it shows that progress has been made over time, and you are now a member of a government that is 56% women and a member of a parliament that is essentially gender equal, with 49% of members and senators women. But it does mean that where there is more work to do, we can't accept that we've made enough progress. There is more work to do to make sure that we ensure that women of Senator Walker's generations and those that follow participate in an economy and a society where equality is sought, and that every opportunity, regardless of whether you're a boy or a girl, you get equal opportunity at every opportunity in life.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Tyrrell.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Health and Ageing, Senator McAllister. Diabetes is the fastest-growing chronic condition in Australia, with prevalence quadrupling since the 90s. Not only does diabetes create significant health impacts, it also increases the risk of more than 50 other serious conditions, including heart disease, cancer, and adds further strain to an already stretched healthcare system. In Tassie, diabetes impacts 2 in 5 people under 65, with diabetes costing $190 million per year on healthcare in Tassie alone. This puts massive strain on the health system, with diabetes to blame for 1 in 6 occupied hospital beds. What is the government doing to specifically reduce the burden of diabetes and its complications on those living with the condition? Will you be committing more funding in the budget?
Thank you, Senator Tyrrell. Minister McAllister.
Thank you very much, President, and thank you, Senator Tyrrell, for the question. The last part of your question asks me to provide an insight into what will be in the budget, and I don't mean to disappoint you too much, Senator, but that won't be something that I can do today. That is something that you'll have to wait for in the budget. But the government does understand that the burden of disease in Australia and the nature of that burden is changing. It was once the case that acute presentations were almost the exclusive focus of health investment. We now, of course, as our demographics change and our health needs are changing, understand that chronic diseases like diabetes have a far more significant impact on the communities that we serve, and our government understands how important the primary health system is in responding to that. These factors absolutely underpin our decision to invest as heavily as we have in Medicare and in the role of GPs in local communities. As your question indicates, there is a relationship between access to primary health and the demands that are placed on our hospital system. And it's why we've made the investments that we have to lift bulk billing again. When we came to government under those opposites, bulk billing was in freefall. We are making an $8.5 billion investment to lift Medicare again, to get bulk billing back on track. And in your own home state, we are starting to see the fruits of that investment. We are starting to see greater numbers of bulk billing clinics, more opportunities for people in your communities to see a doctor, urgent care clinics that allow people to see a doctor for free. These are significant investments that are designed to support Australians across the health conditions that confront them, particularly through investments in primary care.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Tyrrell, first supplementary.
Thanks, President. Way back in 2023, your government and your current health minister started an inquiry into diabetes. The committee released its report in mid-2024, almost 2 years ago, yet we are still waiting for a government response. Where is it? Why won't you respond to an inquiry that you asked for? Why don't you care about diabetes anymore?
Thank you, Senator Tyrrell. Minister McAllister.
Thanks very much, President. Senator Tyrrell, this government does care about access to primary health, and we have put our money where our mouth is through the investments that we are making in primary health care, particularly in bulk billing. And I've been really pleased to report to this Senate over many months the impact that that investment is having. Seeing bulk billing rates rise across our communities, this is really pleasing. Since October 23, the bulk billing rate in Tasmania has changed by 6.3%. That is very, very significant for your community. In Tasmania, 138,000 people 138,000 people have access to Medicare urgent care clinic. These are very significant investments, and they go to the chronic health conditions that we understand are impacting on Australian communities.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Tyrrell, second supplementary.
The inquiry into diabetes recommended that subsidised access to continuous glucose monitors be further expanded, including removing the age limitations on access to subsidised access for type 1 diabetes patients. Will you stand up today and commit to expanding the subsidy on these vital diabetes tools?
Thank you, Senator Tyrrell. Minister McAllister.
Thanks very much, Senator Tyrrell. I concede that I do not have in front of me, I'm representing the Minister for Health, I do not have in front of me information about that specific intervention, but I can tell you that we do take diabetes and its impacts on our communities very seriously. The report that you referred to in your first supplementary did shine a light on a very serious public health issue, and we are committed to delivering for Australians with diabetes. That has included securing the listing of FIASP, if I have that pronunciation correctly, on the PBS, and delivering on our commitment, our election commitment, to give all 130,000 Australians with type 1 diabetes access to subsidised CGM products under the National Diabetes Services Scheme.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Nampijinka-Price.
Thank you. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Climate Change and Energy, Senator Ayres. The government says fuel stocks remain strong and has dismissed Australians' concerns as, in your words yesterday in this chamber, misinformation. Yet Andrew Brown, the owner of a petrol station in the New England region, said he has enforced a fuel limit to ensure adequate fuel supply for the residents and to have leftover for emergencies, stating.
Senator Nampijinka, I'm sorry, I can't hear the question. I've asked. There needs to be silence. Could you start the question again? I'm very sorry.
Very happy to. The government says fuel stocks remain strong and has dismissed Australians' concerns as misinformation. Yet Andrew Brown, the owner of a petrol station in the New England region, said he has enforced a fuel limit to ensure adequate fuel supply for the residents and to have left over for emergencies, stating, "We could have lifted our prices and been out of fuel in 5 days, but instead we're trying to ration it for up to 15 days. Minister, if there is no fuel supply problem, why are regional Australians being left without fuel, or is this what the government now calls misinformation? Not that you care, Mr Watt."
Thank you, Senator Nampijinka-Price. Order. Order. Before I call Minister Ayres, I'm going to remind those on my right, senators have the right to have their question asked in silence. The fact I had to ask the senator to repeat her question is not okay. Minister Ayres.
Well, I'm very pleased to see, Senator Nampijinka-Price, your first question, I think, since the election. I would say, as somebody who grew up in the New England, I'd be interested to know which town this person comes from. That context may not be available to you yet, but I would be interested in it. If this person that you claim exists, I'd be interested to talk to them. I'd be interested to talk to them. I'd be interested to know which town they come from.
Minister Ayres, resume your seat. Order on my left, and I believe it was you, Senator Ruston. You need to withdraw.
I withdraw.
Thank you. Minister Ayres.
Because it's an area I know well. It's an area I know well. The artery that runs through it, the New England Highway, is vital for our trucking sector. And you refer to misinformation. I want to be crystal clear about this question. There are people who have been spreading mischievous misinformation, and that is why it is so important that on this supply question, I don't doubt that there are petrol stations in regional Australia where exactly the kind of circumstances that you've outlined are the case. But there is not a supply problem in Australia. Just now, the Australian Institute of Petroleum has issued a statement which makes it very clear there is not a supply problem in Australia. There is some unusual demand behaviour. And I'm sure in a moment we'll get to come to that. We are in a more fuel-secure position than we have been for 15 years. And that is a result of the government applying the minimum stockholding obligations that we've actually implemented.
Thank you, Minister. Order. Senator Nampijinska-Price, first supplementary.
Thank you. Sam Clifton, this is a real human, by the way, from Tamworth-based Transwest Fuel said yesterday, if we can't get access to any fuel by Thursday or Friday, we're looking at shutting our entire service station and network down. Minister, is Mr Clifton spreading misinformation too, or is he simply telling Australians the truth about what is happening on the ground in regional communities, such as your own, evidently?
Thank you, Senator Nampijinska-Price. Minister Ayres.
Well, Mr Clifton's experience is precisely the same as what has been relayed to us here in Canberra. The Australian Institute of Petroleum issued a statement that just said, over the last week, member companies have been hit by a sudden rush to buy fuel. In some cases, suppliers have seen bulk fuel customers buying 4 times their usual amount of fuel. But in supply terms, we have 1.56 billion litres of petrol. We have 2.97 billion litres of diesel. And that is why it's important for Australians and Australian institutions and Australian political leaders to communicate clearly and in the public interest the truth and to be transparent. Because spreading misinformation, as some of your colleagues have, is mischievous and not in the national interest.
Has expired. Order on my left. Order. Senator Nampijinska-Price, second supplementary.
Thank you. Minister, if there is no supply problem, why are regional service stations already running dry? Or does the government now dismiss every inconvenient fact as misinformation?
Thank you, Senator Nampijinska-Price. Minister Ayres.
No, it's some of your colleagues' behaviour that we dismiss as misinformation. What the Australian Institute of Petroleum says is AIP members have sufficient fuel supply to meet our normal customer fuel demand. In these circumstances, members have had to prioritise supply to their regular customers and to cease spot sales. This is a normal response to high demand. So what we can do, if we actually care about this situation, is to continue to communicate in an effective and clear and transparent way the truth of the position.
Order.
2.97 billion litres of diesel, 1.56 billion litres of petrol here in Australia, and if everybody continues in a normal way, not spreading spreading out there for the clicks, not doing the advanced clicks, then that's what's in the national interest.
The time for answering has expired. Well, the time's expired. Thank you, Senator Nampijinska-Price. Senator Payman.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister for Industry and Innovation, Senator Ayres. This morning, the ABC reported that social media posts about events that never took place involving myself, Senator Hanson, the Prime Minister and other public figures were being created by foreign actors using AI to drive engagement and generate revenue.
At a time when AI is being used more and more as a tool to divide and misinform, the government is backing away from regulation. The decision to abandon the AI advisory body is just one example of this. Minister, at a time when AI is causing harm without consequence, why have you abandoned the AI advisory board after investing $200,000 in a 15-month recruitment process?
Thank you, Senator Payman. Minister Ayres.
Well, the kind of conduct that you refer to, misinformation and disinformation, spread often by either extremist elements in Australia, sometimes originating from overseas, sometimes supercharged by the kind of technologies that you refer to, is something, of course, that we all should fight against, that we all should be determined to oppose, because it's corrosive in democratic terms when people are misrepresented. The approach that the government has taken in relation to artificial intelligence, I mean, there are some elements of that, of course, that are social media and digital and misinformation and disinformation questions, but in relation to the artificial intelligence aspect of that, the approach that the government is taking was set out in the National Artificial Intelligence Plan that I released some months ago. And the first two components about that, capturing the economic advantage here for strategic reasons as much as economic reasons, making sure we spread the benefits through the community, but thirdly, establishing the Artificial Intelligence Safety Institute, is the approach that this government is taking to regulation in relation to artificial intelligence.
Minister Ayres. Senator Payman.
Thank you, President. Just on a point of relevance, I specifically asked about the AI advisory body, and with the 30 seconds left, could you please redirect the minister?
Thank you, Senator Payman. There was also a preamble to that question. The minister is being relevant to your question. Minister Ayres, please continue.
So we provided $29.9 million in funding to establish the institute. Existing laws, including workplace safety, consumer protection, privacy and copyright, apply to artificial intelligence right now. They are enforced by strong regulatory agencies, and our approach is to task and build the capability of those agencies so they do that work in an uninterrupted and effective way.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Payman, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. Minister, it's not just on social media that AI threatens to disrupt the existing order. In our schools, our universities, at the GPs and in the office, AI has changed how we work and learn. Since the disappointing removal of former Minister Husic, the government has indicated it will take a light-touch approach to regulation. Why has the government discarded the work of Mr Husic on a standalone AI Act?
Thank you, Senator Payman. Minister Ayres.
Well, I don't think we've used that language of light touch to describe our approach. It's an effective regulatory approach. And in each of the theatres of activity that you described, there are important benefits that artificial intelligence can offer to Australians, health terms and productivity terms. Say you wanted to produce 35,000 questions on notice, and you had, say, 4 staff to do that work. And say you thought it was going to take about 30 minutes for each question on notice.
Order.
My maths...
Order. Senator McGrath, come to order.
I'm more a maths kind of guy than a maths kind of guy, but if my maths says that if you could do 304 questions on notice every week, it would take your office 460 weeks to produce
Senator
that work.
McGrath.
But if you used artificial intelligence to produce 35 questions on notice, Senator Hume, at home or at work...
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Payman, second supplementary.
Minister, you're doing a great job dodging my questions. Let's hope you can answer this one. Australians know that influence is power in this place, and industry giants have access to ministers who they present with talking points and influence the decision-making of executive government. Minister, since you became the Minister for Industry and Innovation last year, on how many occasions have you met with representatives of OpenAI, Anthropic and other AI companies?
Thank you, Senator Payman. Minister Ayres.
Well, can I maybe say a couple of things that if I can assist in terms of meetings, I'd be very happy to. It's my approach to meet regularly with industry, whether it's in the smelter sector, whether it's in the artificial intelligence sector, wherever it is. You know, my office is not a place where we hide from industry. But the implication underlying your question, I think, is utterly offensive. Like, just because we disagree about the approach that we take.
Minister Ayres, please resume your seat. Senator Nampijinka-Price.
Of order. The minister never directs his answers through you, Chair.
Thank you, Senator Nampijinka-Price. I'll remind the minister to direct his questions to me. Minister Ayres, I remind you to direct your questions to me. I beg your pardon, your answers.
President, just because those of us in this place disagree, I think the idea that there's not room for disagreement and people can't form different views about what is in the national interest here, I happen to think that it's in the national interest to make sure that we secure as much of the technology stack here in Australia and that it's run by Australians in our national interest.
Senator Polley.
My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Climate Change and Energy, Senator Ayres. Global energy market volatility continues, driven by the war in the Middle East. In response, the Albanese Labor government is working closely with the fuel importers and retailers and the industry associations of major fuel users to protect businesses and households. Can the minister please put the facts on the record and provide an update on the domestic fuel supply and what the government's actions they are taking?
Thank you, Senator Polley. Minister Ayres.
I guess I've had a few opportunities to canvass some of this before, so I'll try and do it in a different and maybe, as Senator Cash says, a more convincing kind of way. The National Oil Supplies Emergency Committee has already met twice and been very clear that there is no shortage of supply. Australia has 1.56 billion litres, 1.56 billion litres of petrol on hand, 802 million litres of jet fuel on hand, 2.97 billion litres of diesel on hand. Senator O'Sullivan says where? Well, not in Texas. Here in Australia, Senator Colbeck, I'm sorry. This is above.
Minister Ayres, please resume your seat. Senator Wong.
I'm sure he doesn't need assistance, but it was somewhat loud. So I wonder, point of order, I wonder if we could just at least tone the interjections down a little in terms of volume and repetition.
I'm sure you've noticed, Senator Wong, for almost the last hour I have been calling fairly consistently for order, but I would ask those on my left to come to order once again. The minister has the right to respond to the question in silence. Minister Ayres, please continue.
And of course, the minister's work, Minister Bowen, has been ongoing through this process. Yesterday, as was publicly canvassed, we met with the National Farmers Federation, Trucking Australia, Fertiliser Australia, the Peak Group of Service Stations and the Australian Institute of Petroleum. We are going to continue with an approach that is about Australians working together to deliver in the national interest off the back of this government implementing, not just talking about, implementing the minimum stockholding obligations and the country performing at a higher level. We are very focused on these issues but not complacent. As the announcement that just came before question time that I relayed before makes very clear, we are increasing penalties, focused on working with the regulators and going to be working through this in a consistent and disciplined way.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Polley, first supplementary.
Thanks, President. Minister, Australia holds more than its minimum stockholding obligations for petrol, diesel and jet fuel. However, some retailers are rationing purchases. Why are some buyers being rationed And what are buyers and retailers saying about the state of the fuel market?
Well, I think order. Minister Ayres.
Thank you, Senator Polley. President, where there is this rationing behaviour from some petroleum retailers, it is because of a spike in purchases. As I relayed, the Australian Institute of Petroleum says AIP members have sufficient fuel supply to meet our normal consumer fuel demand. There are some people in our political system who want to seek political profit from a national challenge. Our approach is to act in the national interest, to continue to build our fuel security, to communicate in a reliable and transparent way. Their focus is to try and hype up the misinformation machine and hope to get a political result. And when will they ever learn? When will they ever learn?
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Polley's second supplementary.
President, Australia has 2 petrol refineries, down from 6 in 2014. Minister, why did these refineries close? And would different government policies on oil extraction have kept these refineries open?
Thank you, Senator Polley. Minister Ayres.
Well, as reluctant as I am to reflect on the performance of the previous government neglected the national interest. It wouldn't recognise the national interest if it bit them. Senator Canavan was a minister in that government.
Minister Ayres, please resume your seat. Senator McGrath, I have had to call you an extraordinarily high number of times this question time, and almost as many times, Senator O'Sullivan, you have been backing in the disorder. I will ask you to listen in silence to the minister's comments. Minister, please continue.
Senator McGrath is usually funnier, but Senator Canavan was a minister in that government. Now he is embarrassed and says that if the states allowed more oil drilling, these refineries would not have closed. He is dead wrong. Geosciences Australia said Australia has limited conventional oil reserves that are being depleted at a faster rate than they are being replaced by new discoveries. Now, as the new leader of the National Party, perhaps you could pick up the phone to the deputy leader of the National Party in the Senate, who just sits diagonally opposite next to you, alongside the leader of the National Party in the Senate, because Senator McDonald does pay attention to some of the facts, rather than making up alternative facts.
Thank you, Minister Ayres. The time, Senator Henderson.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Climate Change and Energy, Senator Ayres. Fuel distributor Greta Barton from Bartrans Petroleum says the wholesale fuel price spikes following the Middle East conflict are the worst she has seen in 30 years, times by 100. She says her company would normally distribute around 1 million litres of fuel a week, but can now collect just 50,000 litres a day. Minister, is Ms Barton telling the truth about the crisis on the ground, or is this government's response to her, "It's enough from you, I reckon"?
Thank you, Senator Henderson. Minister Ayres.
The answer to that question, President, is firstly that what the Australian Institute of Petroleum says, and I'm not sure whether this facility is a member of that organisation or not, but they say that in some areas, they say, the rush to buy fuel has been unprecedented, outstripping the surge seen at the outbreak of the Russia-Ukrainian war in 2022. So consumer behaviour here is different. But in supply terms, those figures that I outlined to the Senate earlier, President, those figures have fundamentally not changed over the course of the conflict. So they are about the same, and that is because ships have been arriving as predicted. Ships are on the water to Australia as predicted. We are obviously watching those developments closely. but it is not correct to go around saying that Australia has a supply challenge, because that is just not true. That is just not true. In terms of price, just as I say, a national challenge is not an opportunity for political partisanship and political profiteering. It is not an opportunity for price gouging and price profiteering either. That is why we've announced the doubling of penalties for false or misleading conduct and cartel behaviour to a maximum of $100 million per offence across the economy. That's why the ACCC has been tasked to ramp up fuel price monitoring, reporting weekly with a focus on unusual price spikes. And I won't go to the next bit because I won't finish it, and I'll hear.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Henderson, first supplementary.
Thanks, President. Minister, Australians are interested in the truth. Miss Barton warns trucks are already being parked, and that if shortages continue, people are going to be completely out of fuel. Does the government accept that fuel shortages are already forcing transport operators and businesses across Australia to shut down?
Real people. Thank you, Senator Henderson. When there's silence, I'll call the Minister. Minister Ayres.
Well, that is the contrast between your political party and the government. Whenever there has been a national challenge over the course of the last few years, the focus of the Nationals and the Liberals and One Nation has been to hyperventilate, to drive division, to shout at people.
Minister Ayres, please resume your seat. Senator Henderson.
President, on direct relevance, if you could ask the Minister, please, be directly relevant to the question I asked,
thank you, Senator
which was
Henderson.
all about—
I don't need the question repeated. I have written down the key points. Minister Ayres, could you direct your response to the question, please?
Well, I'm referring to the kind of communications that make a difference at a time of national challenge like this. And the approach of those opposite has been to spread division and anger and rancour.
Minister Ayres, please resume your seat. Senator Henderson.
Point of order on direct relevance, President. I did ask about whether fuel shortages are already forcing transport operators.
Senator Henderson, we've been down this road before.
But the Minister did not address the question.
I expect you to stop. You don't need to repeat the question. As I said when you stood last time, the Minister is now being relevant, and I will continue to listen closely to his response.
And it goes in a cycle. National challenge, National Party and Liberal Party division and fear and anger and extremism, and Australians walk away from them. National challenge, anger, fear, political extremism, and more Australians walk away from them. It happens again and again and again, and you get smaller and smaller and smaller.
Senator Henderson, second supplementary.
Minister, Australians expect you to answer the question. Miss Barton says farmers could lose entire crops and piggeries could lose livestock if generators run out of fuel, warning the maths just don't work. Will the government stop denying reality, Minister, and admit Australian industries now face devastating losses because they cannot get the fuel they need? Please answer the question, Minister.
Thank you, Senator Henderson. Minister Ayres.
Well, yesterday I spoke with the President of the National Farmers Federation in that meeting that Minister Bowen convened. A real farmer, not a fake farmer. And what he said,
Minister Ayres.
Well, not like the fake farmers over there. He is a real farmer. He is a real farmer, not a fake farmer like that lot over there.
Order. 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 I remind you, Senator Ayres, when I ask you to sit, that's what I expect. Senator Henderson.
President, point of order, impugning another senator in this place. I would ask them. I mean, seriously, Minister, that's a joke.
Senator Henderson. Senator Henderson, order. The chamber needs to come to order. I don't believe the minister was making a direct comment to anyone, but I will ask if he was. He will withdraw, but I believe it was just a general comment. Minister.
I was referring to the National Party. The NFF president.
Senator Ayres, in the interest of the chamber, thank you, and I would ask you to refrain from doing that and just answer the question. Thank you.
The National Farmers Federation president, Mr McIntyre, said there's been an increase in demand in about 40% right across the nation. Everyone across the economy is forward buying more than they usually do. What should we do in response to that? Well, one approach is to go and yell at people and tell them there's a supply problem when you know it's not true. The other approach is to communicate directly and transparently in the way that I've done about the amount of petrol and diesel and jet fuel that there is here in Australia, more than there has been for 15
Minister,
years.
the time for answering has expired. Minister Wong.
Thank you, President. I ask that further questions be placed on notice.